Welcome to our first AbleCon session, Able United 101, or the basics of Able accounts. Following this presentation, I'll have the opportunity to interview one of our brand ambassadors whose daughter also has an Able account, Elizabeth Ricci. So let's talk about Able accounts, Able United 101. So in case you didn't know, Able is an acronym for Achieving a Better Life Experience, and it's based on a piece of legislation that passed back in 2014. And what it did was allowed states to create these tax-advantaged savings and investment accounts, better known as ABLE accounts. Now, these accounts are similar to other types of financial and investment products that already exist, similar to like a college savings 529 plan, Roth IRA, a health savings account, a special needs trust, kind of unique financial product that's really for the disability community. And that's what our mission is, to encourage individuals and their families with disabilities to be able to put money aside, to have these accounts grow, and to be used for a variety of qualified disability expenses. How we got started here in the state of Florida, Florida had to pass its own legislation, better known as the Florida ABLE Act. And what it did was actually house this program under the Florida Prepaid College Board. So if you haven't heard of Florida Prepaid, they've been around for over 30 plus years in the state of Florida, have helped 1.2 million families save for higher education expenses. Now they're helping the disability community save for a variety of expenses. We're officially launched on July 1 of 2016, so coming up on 7 years. And what's unique about this program is that this really had its grassroots movement with individuals with disabilities and their families. They're really the ones that sat around a dining room table and say, hey, why can't we start saving and putting funds aside for my child that might have a diagnosis or a disability like I can for a typical child? And so through the hard work of their advocacy efforts, this program is now in existence. So on the screen here we have Jen and her son Sean. They were the first ABLE account holder here in the state of Florida, but they were at that round table with parents looking at ways to save for a better life experience. But when they got passed, it opened the door for so many other types of individuals with disabilities or diagnosis. So Alicia, who is currently using a wheelchair, needs help to be moving around. And so having a wheelchair accessible van is a goal of theirs, and they can use the ABLE account to save for that. Elliot and his mom Sandra, who's using funds to save for whatever the future may hold, and he can also put extra funds in there from some of his side jobs like his DJing job. So really a broad variety of individuals who are now able to save. So let's talk a little bit about eligibility. This is kind of unique. First of all, an individual can only have one ABLE account nationwide. Unlike a savings or an investment account where you can have multiple, ABLE accounts are unique. And so one per person. And who is eligible? One is the individual has to be a Florida resident at the time they apply. And that's unique to Florida's program as being Able United. Each state gets to set up and run their own ABLE program. Some may have or may not have residency requirements. The next two are true for all ABLE programs. First, the individual has to have a disability onset prior to age 26. Doesn't matter their age yet, currently, but that diagnosis had to occur before the age of 26. And next, it has to be severe. By that, it either means they're on supplemental security income, Social Security disability insurance, or they mark that they're self-certified, that they meet the definition of a disability. And if somebody is selecting the self-certification, those types of disabilities, you're just going to attest to these, that it is a significant impairment that occurred prior to age 26. It resulted in functional, moderate or marked and severe functional limitations, and it's expected to last at least 12 months. And so those types of disabilities, as I mentioned, is pretty broad. So here is the list of disabilities that the IRS has put out. So you can see there's different types of disabilities, so developmental disorders like autistic spectrum disorder or Asperger's, intellectual, psychiatric, nervous disorders, and so quite a few. So you might see your disability on here or your loved one's disability. If not, we also have a eligibility wizard available on our website, and individuals can take those as well as get additional information on the types of disabilities that qualify. What's also unique about ABLE accounts is who owns the account. The individual with the disability is the owner of the account. Now, we know not in every situation individuals can maintain their own account, and so what the IRS has provided us is a list of individuals who could set up these accounts on behalf of that individual. And this includes somebody like a legal guardian, power of attorney, but it's much broader than that. So it could be a parent, a spouse, sibling, even a grandparent, and then ultimately a representative payee under the Social Security Administration, whether that be an individual or an organization. So pretty broad list of individuals who can actually establish these accounts on behalf of a loved one. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about ABLE and public benefits, because one of the big advantages of an ABLE United account is that funds in the account generally do not count as a resource for Medicaid, SSI, or other types of public benefit programs. And we're going to really talk about the specifics of Medicaid as well as SSI. So Medicaid, just as a refresher, is kind of a joint federal and state program that helps pay for a very robust set of Medicaid services. So kind of an enhanced healthcare system. We also have what we call home and community-based waivers. So these are basically waivers that provides additional Medicaid services. The most popular one for the individuals we serve is the iBudget waiver, as well as long-term care, which has some of the spinal cord injuries. But that provides a very robust set of services throughout the state. Generally, funds in the ABLE account or even taken out of the ABLE account are disregarded when determining eligibility. So that's allows people basically to save more than $2,000. And we also passed a law here in the state of Florida to not allow Florida Medicaid to file a lien on the ABLE account directly. What generally happens if an individual passes away, leftover funds would go to the estate of that beneficiary. Now, there may be Medicaid estate recovery if the beneficiary is over 55, so keep that in mind. And also, if you move out of the state of Florida, you can take the ABLE United account with you. However, that state may have Medicaid recovery on ABLE accounts, so keep that in mind as well. The other public benefit I want to talk about is Supplemental Security Income, SSI. Now, that's a monthly check that helps pay for basic living expenses like housing, food, and shelter, clothing as well. Generally, funds taken out of the ABLE account or put into the ABLE account don't count as income or resource for that individual. So it allows them to save more than $2,000. Now, there's a couple of exceptions to that. One is that the ABLE account can only get up to $100,000 before it begins counting as a resource for supplemental security income. So keep that in mind if your account gets to that size, that your SSI check may be suspended. Also, if the account is paying for non-qualified expenses or housing expenses past the end of the month, that may count as a resource. So, for example, if you wanted to pay for a housing-related expense, let's say utilities, and you took that money out at the end of the month out of your ABLE account and then withheld it towards the next month, that would count as a resource for SSI purposes. So great ways to avoid that is just having the ABLE account pay that directly. Very important to know that earned income and sometimes unearned income, such as child support payments, if those are directly deposited into an ABLE account, that's still going to count as income. So you can't use an ABLE account to disregard counting resources or counting income for SSI purposes. And we always encourage individuals that if they do have supplemental security income to go on the World Wide Web there and look for the POMS manual, which is the Program Operations Manual System that Social Security has about ABLE accounts, because it's going to provide all the necessary details. So we talked about the history of ABLE accounts, how we got set up, who is eligible, a little bit on public benefits, and now we're going to talk about actually establishing the account. Where do you get started? One of the questions we get is, can I go to my local bank? Unfortunately, no. This is a program that's run by the state, and it's available online at ableunited.com. There you'll go, hit the open account button, and we're going to ask some identifying information about the beneficiary, as well as if somebody's opening this on behalf of an individual, so social security numbers, date of birth, permanent address. If you're also opening this, we're going to ask you some public identifying information, such as, did you live on a certain street or what the color of your car is? So be prepared for those types of questions. You're also going to self-certify why the beneficiary is eligible for an ABLE account. After that is done, we'll verify your email, and then you'll go into the part where you're setting up the actual bank transactions and banking information tied to the ABLE account. And so you'll be able to choose what investment and saving options you have to get started. Now, talking about investment and savings, ABLE is unique because this is both a savings and investment product. It could be either or both. And what we did was design pre-designed portfolios that meets the needs of most investors. So this is a conservative, moderate, and growth. So these are kind of pre-designed portfolios. However, if you are uninterested in investing or saving, or maybe you're very knowledgeable and want to create your own portfolio, we do have individual fund options. And those range in risk from an FDIC money market account or FDIC savings fund, a money market account, a U.S. stock, U.S. bond, and an international stock. And what's reassuring is that the companies managing this are such as Vanguard, BlackRock, very large, robust investment firms that are actually managing the funds on your behalf. So you don't have to worry about me messing up the funds that you're investing or saving. And you can check on our website for historical performance and learn additional details about these investments and savings options. Now, putting money into the account, the great thing is anybody can contribute to an ABLE account. It could be the beneficiary and the money that they have. It could be family, friends, organizations, business. There is a limit to $17,000 per calendar year from all sources, so that's an aggregate amount. If the beneficiary is working and not saving for retirement, they can actually contribute above that amount. It's called Able to Work. And then there's opportunities to put leftover 529 college savings funds into the ABLE account as well. And once again, remember, earned income still counts for income purposes, and it can't be used. An ABLE account can't be used to shelter that income. So something important to think about. Now, this next section is my favorite because I'm the spender in my family. Withdrawal, taking money out of the ABLE account and then actually using it. How does that work? So there's quite a few ways to get money out of the account. You can withdraw it back to a connected bank account. You can request the check to be sent to the beneficiary or a third party, or we have an optional ABLE Visa prepaid card, and that is a reloadable prepaid card. It can be preloaded and then being used anywhere Visa is accepted. So a great way to give people some financial flexibility. Some things to consider, though, when you do make a withdrawal from an ABLE account is that it will trigger tax forms. Those tax forms will be sent to the permanent address or provided to you electronically. Basically, it's a 1099 QA that kind of details withdrawals for the calendar year and how much of that was earnings, and a 5498 QA stating that you have an ABLE account and how it was established. Keep those for record-keeping purposes along with receipts on what you use the funds in the ABLE account for, better known as qualified disability expenses. Also, there's flexibility on when you take money out of the account, where do you want to pull that money from? You can pull it from the investment, the savings option. It really provides you that flexibility. So talking about actually using the funds, qualified disability expenses. Very broad. The Treasury provided 13 very broad categories: health, education, transportation, quite a significant list, to the point where they said it should be construed broadly. They gave one example of an individual needing a cell phone to help communicate or navigate. Then a cell phone and cell phone plan would be a qualified disability expense. Usually expenses that are probably not going to be eligible are expenses such as alcohol, tobacco. Giving the funds away would not benefit the individual. Really, it comes down to, is the funds going to be used to help either improve or maintain somebody's health, independence, or quality of life? Sounds too good to be true, so people want to know, what is this going to cost? And the great thing is we really want to make this a free program to individuals. So you can enroll in the program. Our investment products do have an administrative fee tied to them. Our FDIC option has no fees tied to it. And then if you want optional fees such as a paper statement or that preloadable debit card, those have some fees associated with it as well. But really, we want to make this the best value for Floridians, so we don't have an application fee or monthly maintenance fees as well. So, and you can have the reassurance that it's being managed by Florida Prepaid, which has a long history of helping individuals save for a variety of expenses. So how do you reach our program? So if you're on our website and you have some additional information or additional questions you want to get asked beyond what's going to be provided in our QA section, visit ableunited.com. That's a ton of resources on there. We have a great FAQ section. We also have Spanish resources as well as Haitian Creole resources on our page as well. And maybe you want to just book some time with me directly. You can do that under our Contact Us page. Definitely reach out to customer service. That's why they're there, available Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 Eastern. And our phone number, 888-524-2253. But with that, I'm going to bring back Elizabeth to talk a little bit more about her experiences with Able United and having an Able United account. Now I'd like to welcome Elizabeth to join me and share a little bit about her experience. Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we brought you on to tell a little bit about your experience as it comes to ABLE accounts. I know your daughter has one. Can you tell us how you heard about ABLE accounts, how you heard about Able United and got involved?
Sure. A few years ago, my family and I were all down at the Family Cafe in Orlando, an excellent event, and I was working a booth for another organization, and my husband and daughter were walking around and saw someone from ABLE who they recognized from Starbucks, and it turned out that she was representing ABLE, and he opened an account.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know since then you've had a couple of accounts, and one of the things that we do for account holders and just to help spread the word is we do an email out to saying, hey, we see that you have an account. We're looking for people to be brand ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
So actually go out on behalf of Able United to speak at events, and you were willing to sign up. So tell us a little bit about your experience of being a brand ambassador.
Sure. Well, I always wanted to be an ambassador, so that was great. I speak Spanish, so it's been a way for me to help my community, English and Spanish speakers, and share our great experiences with families who have children who could benefit from the program.
Awesome. And I know you've gone to several events so far, and just what are some of your experiences? What would you say be your favorite event that you've gone to?
I do love Family Cafe. I think the entertainment is excellent, and I love all of the vendors, but I also love Sportsability. And I just did Sportsability a few weeks ago, had a great time. I ran out of all my ambassadorial materials, which is a good thing. And sometimes we'll go to events like that because I'm an ambassador, or we'll go just because we want to participate and want our kids to participate.
That's awesome. And I think just you being a brand ambassador is so powerful, right? It speaks volumes to parents and individuals with disabilities who are hesitant about having an ABLE account. You can really speak to them in a way that I can't. So we really appreciate your efforts there. And me too. I love Family Cafe. Great event. We're there for the last 7 years now, and looking forward to going again this year as well. So tell us a little bit about, I know it's your daughter who has an ABLE account. Can you tell us a little bit about, is she using it now? What's the plan with her ABLE account?
So she's a senior in high school. We've been putting money into the account and having family and friends do that as well, which is a great benefit. You can have On your end of the year letter, instead of sending toys and gifts, you can contribute to the account, and that's what people have been doing. So she hasn't been using it yet because she's still living at home, but she'll be going to school in New York City soon, and she'll be able to use it for transportation and books and living expenses.
Yeah. I was fortunate to go recently, and food. I think food's a good third of people's budgets there in New York. So being able to use an ABLE account for a variety of expenditures, whether it be for school or to get around or even purchasing food, that's amazing.
Well, the good thing is that ramen soup only costs $1.
That's great. And so just wrapping up our time here, thinking of your experience so far, what would you tell somebody who either hasn't opened an ABLE account, is hesitant, or maybe has never even heard about the program?
Well, that's what I do as an ambassador, right? I tell families that this is a great way for families to save for their family member who has a disability that started before the age of 26. And it's similar to the prepaid college program. I tell people that because they're familiar with it, and they're often not familiar with this program. It doesn't interfere with benefits, which is great, and it has a lot more flexibility than other programs. So usually it's minimal or sometimes even free to start an account depending on what specials are happening. So there's not really a downside to having the account, and it gives the account holder a lot of flexibility and kind of independence to how they're spending money. So I think it's a great program, and I'm sad that we didn't start it sooner, but here we are.
Awesome. And that's great. And that's good to mention that you said specials going on. And that's something that reminds me now. So in case you haven't heard, at the beginning of this, we talked about a promotion going on right now for all new account holders to get $50 contributed to their account. So that's a great way to start saving now when you can get an extra little bit to help. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to spend some time now going through people's questions and look forward to running into you again. So thank you, Elizabeth.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, let's look at some of these questions. First question is, what is a qualified disability expense? This is probably one of our top questions because usually with either a health savings account or some kind of investment product, you have a purpose at the end, right? I'm going to retire, I'm going to save for higher education expenses in a college savings account or plan. Qualified disability expenses for ABLE accounts are unique in that it's very broad. The Treasury came down and gave us 13 very broad categories to include anything from health to transportation, daily living expenses, home, and quite a bit of other categories as well. And so really the drawing line is, does the expense relate to the individual with a disability and help either improve or maintain their health, independence, or quality of life? Usually I tell individuals, things that are probably not going to be qualified or giving the funds away, anything that can be hurtful or harmful to the person, maybe alcohol, tobacco, gambling, those types of expenses. But as long as you could justify it, that is a expense related to them and is going to be used to help support them, then it's going to be a qualified disability expense. Something to keep in mind though, when you do make a withdrawal from an ABLE account, it will trigger some tax forms. So you might get a 1099 QA, which is just going to be for tax reporting purposes, saying that you took money out of the ABLE account, how much of that money was earnings, and there's no taxes on that as long as you used it appropriately. So keep that in mind. Looking here, the next question we have, this is probably the second most question we get all the time, is what happens to the funds in the ABLE account if the beneficiary passes away? And so I know, that's something not everybody wants to think about, but it's, 10 out of 10 people are still going to die. And so people want to know, what do I do with the funds in the ABLE account? What's going to happen? So generally, after all outstanding qualified disability expenses are paid, including funeral and burial, if there were outstanding bills or other kinds of items that needed to be paid for, all those would be paid first, and then any leftover funds would go to the estate of the beneficiary. Now, there is a rule that we pass and have implemented that allows there be a designated successor owner or a designated successor beneficiary, and that is a sibling who also qualifies for an ABLE account. And that's kind of unique, so it's not going to apply for a lot of people, but that is available. If it doesn't, it goes to the estate, and then we go through whatever that estate closing process may be. It could be going through probate. You might have to talk to an attorney to set that up. And that's only if there's leftover funds. There was concerns about Medicaid estate recovery going directly after an ABLE account, but we clarified that and said, no, here in the state of Florida, we're going to allow it to go to the estate. And your estate may be subject to Medicaid recovery if the individual was receiving Medicaid services and they were over the age of 55. So keep that in mind when the beneficiary of these accounts start to age. And then finally, we already tackled a little bit about filing taxes for ABLE United account. Once again, you'll get those. Another question I get quite a bit is, if you're opening an account, who can that individual be? We tackled it a little bit during the earlier presentation, but I want to reiterate that since it has expanded. And so if you have a power of attorney, guardian, but also to keep in mind, this could be set up by a grandparent, a sibling, in some situations a spouse, and even a representative payee. And I do encourage you, if you're listening to this and you're an organization or an entity that's serving as a representative payee, to reach out to us and we can get you set up so you can be able to enroll a bunch of individuals under one account. And just as a reminder, if you put your question in the QA box, we have a team that's working behind the scenes that's working best to answer those questions. Also a reminder, we have the $50 account contribution promotion going on right now. So all new ABLE account holders, you'll get a $50 promotion contributed to your account as long as you enroll before the end of June. So you have a little bit of time to get that done. Up next, we're going to talk about special needs trust and ABLE accounts with board-certified elder law attorney Travis Fincham.